Arknights. It's the game I've arguably played the most on this channel, alongside Blue Archive. And if you've been an individual who's been here from the very beginning of my Arknights journey and in the Discord server, which I recommend joining by the way, you've seen my progression from the numerous reroll accounts to an individual who knows pretty much nothing in the beginning of my Arknights in a nutshell videos, into the long-winded rants that I've done thus far on the channel about different mechanics that I may not like, and as a result you may get the impression that my relationship with Arknights has been a rocky one, and ultimately it has. And so in today's video, I'm going to go over the mechanics, the gameplay, the character design, the music, and ultimately explain to you my complicated relationship with Arknights. Today's video is not sponsored, but if you would like to support the channel, consider subscribing or leaving a like down below because it does greatly help us out. With that being said, let me take you on the beginning of my journey into this game. In the beginning, I created two separate Arknights accounts. The first one being the one you're seeing on screen now, and I think I can pretty comfortably say this is a relatively good starter account. Problem is, after I made it, BlueStacks refused to open Arknights, so I ended up having to create a secondary account. The secondary account is the one you're more used to seeing in all my videos. It has Golden Glow. With the recent introduction of Thorns, it's pretty set up. Ultimately, I created these accounts, with the second one being the one that I managed to stick with and use all the time. But even after making them, after I got Golden Glow, I dropped the game entirely. I played Blue Archive for around a solid 1 to 2 months without ever going back into Arknights. After creating my Discord server and continuing to play Blue Archive, I was looking for another game to play. At the time, it was between Arknights and Genshin Impact, and ultimately I chose Arknights, relogging back into the Golden Glow account and continuing onwards. I played the game. Shortly thereafter, I made the Arknights in a nutshell videos, which you all seem to like pretty well. And you've seen the journey thus far. Ultimately, when creating numerous videos, for a small clip of me pulling Suzerain, I ended up re-rolling about 22 times over the course of around 3 days. So I do know the introduction of Arknights pretty well, and as I've gone through the entire story of the game and ultimately learned new mechanics, gained new characters, and built up my squad, my opinions on the game have changed over time. And you, no doubt, have seen that with certain videos, such as my auto-deploy video. And so, if we're on the topic of mechanics, there are still numerous different things that do annoy me. But if you've already watched the auto-deploy video and my video on 3-8 and how it gave me clinical depression, then ultimately I don't believe there's much point in ranting in this one as well. I've played numerous different gacha games such as Blue Archive, and I believe that annihilation tickets should have been in the game either from the start or very shortly after. The current edition in the game is fine, but I do think it's a bit odd to only get one a day when you're still going to have to do this throughout the week. There's no difference between giving me one ticket a day versus just giving me them all at once. But that is my own personal gripe and you can differ. Auto-deploy is an issue because I understand making stable auto-deploy runs, but if you've already cleared a stage afterwards, a lot of times it can feel a bit like RNG as to whether or not an enemy will come out at one point in time or whether your character will decide if they want to use a skill now. When, if you've already cleared a stage, it should just continuously clear again. With a lack of proper explanation for different character types and things like resistances, it means that there can be a slight difficulty curve throughout the game. Alongside this slight issue wherein if you choose or want to have the entirety of a dialogue box pop up, instead of individually waiting out for the text or characters to come up, you can end up skipping the entirety of the dialogue itself. But that's a minor gripe, although other individuals have complained about it too. However, with that being said, and since we're on the topic of tutorials, let's talk about the community. I've mentioned numerous times before that Arknights community is extremely large, and ultimately it has been pretty helpful. If you've been in the Discord server or you've seen many numerous videos of mine, you may know or may have seen and heard that we do have an active help channel, and that help channel extends beyond just the bounds of the server itself. I've been DM'd numerous times with individuals teaching me different mechanics or giving me slight bits of advice, and ultimately I do appreciate that. There are numerous guides available on YouTube that you can find, and there's even Game Press, which is a website that has a bunch of different and really helpful guides for you to look at. Arknights itself has a pretty wide community that is really open to helping out individuals, and whilst there is problems here and there relating to that community, I think overall if you're a new player, my recommendation would be to pay more attention to the community and what they have to say on different characters, rather than trying to figure things out by yourself or rate them based on how you would use them, because you may have different instances in which a unit is great early game but then falls off pretty heavily towards late game. And you can find all of this and more in my Discord server. Join join if you haven't already. But ultimately, I do think the community of Arknights is one of its best factors. I think that even if you have trouble with the game itself, you can actively ask any community member and they should be able to at the very least give you some guidance and some clarity. However, with all of this being said, I do think it's incredibly important to mention that despite the good things about Arknights, you do have to discuss, as with every single gacha game, the gacha system. The gacha system, as with any gacha, can be kind and can be pretty awful. For me personally, it's been nice. I've gotten thorns. I've been able to use the recruitment tickets and stuff like that to pick up Lapland and Liskarm. As I mentioned previously, I started the game with Golden Glow, so I didn't need to grab her later on, and I am quite thankful for that. I think the only issue you would theoretically have with banners is the limited ones, because with every other character, you can essentially pick them up off banner accidentally. But with limited ones, you are bound to the time constraints and you either will go to absolute pity and go to that 300 mark to just purchase them with the currency that you gain from pulling on limited banners, or you will cry, sad and alone in your room knowing that you didn't get this character you wanted and you will have to wait ages for them to come back. There is no in between. But overall, I would say the gacha, especially for newer players, is pretty good because there are numerous opportunities for you to pick up different characters that you don't have yet. Now, if you're talking about spending and intend to spend, know that with every gacha game it's going to get expensive and Arknights is no exception. While golden certificates do offer you a small relief in the form of getting a potential pullback in terms of headhunting if you can fill out the shop, it's not necessarily reliable enough for me to say that it's worthwhile, because there are many opportunities for you just not to get many of them, or at least enough for them to get the 10 pulls or the 10 times 2. So overall, I'd say the gacha can be pretty rough to you or pretty favorable to you. As with all gachas, it's dependent on how your luck is. Make of that what you will. Now, I would be remiss to mention the story of Arknights, so I feel like it deserves some discussion. Let's talk. It has an anime, if you're interested in it. That's about all I can reasonably say. Each character has their own individual stories that you can read, but if you're talking about the main story of the game, I don't want to speak on that until I've ultimately reached at least chapter 10. And I don't want to speak on that inaccurately, so I will probably give the story of Arknights its own dedicated video in the same way that I did for Genshin Impact. So unfortunately, understand that there is a story and it does get pretty deep, and each character and unit does have their own backstory that you can read if you obtain higher trust rank with them, alongside the fact that events have their own stories associated with them and may either reveal more about a current character now or an alternative version of that character. But do know that I will either be making a future video on that or it will be available in the Discord server down below. I just don't want to give you an inaccurate opinion or perception of the story thus far. If you're watching this far, you know that I haven't exactly mentioned the gameplay. And the reason behind that is its tower defense, and ultimately while it can get pretty complicated, it's very difficult to discuss tower defense and the nature of it, because the way you're playing it doesn't necessarily change only the units and enemies you're facing, and that's different considerations and different strategies. So it is very difficult to adequately discuss tower defense. Either you like it or you hate it. There's not necessarily an in-between. I don't necessarily find it to be the most interesting form of gameplay. I do prefer numerous other types, but I can see the appeal of the game. I, however, just play for the characters, like Mizuki. And whilst I've mentioned numerous flaws that I have with the game across my channel, I do think it's a worthwhile experience. I would say that Arknights is a very solid and consistent gacha game, and if you're interested in playing it, I recommend it to pretty much anybody. I think for a first gacha, it can be pretty overwhelming with the different mechanics, but I think the community alleviates that to some degree. It doesn't necessarily take up too much space on your phone if you choose to play it that way, and the game is extremely generous with giving you different items such as recruitment tickets early on. And as a result, I feel like it's not only accessible but also very free to play friendly depending on what you want to achieve in the game itself. I know this wasn't as in-depth as my Genshin Impact review, but ultimately I haven't been playing Arknights long enough to warrant a video like that or give an adequate opinion, so look forward to it in the future. If you enjoyed this, subscribe, consider leaving a like on the video, head over to the Discord server, and I will see you next time. Okay, but seriously, why doesn't auto-deploy work all the time? Why can't it really fail like that? It makes no sense for it to fail. And then you have Annihilation tickets. Oh great, I have to watch Annihilation for 15 minutes before finally being able to use it once. I really love that feature. Such a great introduction. Just give me all the tickets or none at all. Like, what's the point? Hey, this isn't an elite. This isn't a feature that amazes or changes me. Watching the game happen that I've already done is not adding to my experience. Having dialogue that doesn't necessarily have an instantaneous ability to come out, just change the text speed. Either allow me to change the text speed or just allow me to outright click it once and bring it all up at the same time. I don't want to individually have to watch every letter come up on screen. Even if you say it's a couple seconds I'm spending watching because I already read it. Next is the Blue Archive comparison. In Blue Archive, you have the gameplay separate from the story, meaning that if you don't have the stamina to do the gameplay, you can still watch the story, meaning you unlock them separately. Sure, you unlock an episode or a section of the story alongside your gameplay, but let's say hypothetically you just want to spend your stamina or your sanity, there should be a methodology for you to easily read all the story at once. For the individuals who are going to say that there's the anime out there and you should watch that, the anime came out later, so let's be honest, we're evaluating the game itself. The community is a hive mind, which may either work in your favor or may just mess you up altogether. I don't hate the game, but I mean, come on, look, come on. You can't tell me that there shouldn't just be a skip button for Annihilation. Like, do you all really enjoy watching the Annihilations you've already done for 10 to 15 minutes? And for the individuals who just automatically do it, as in you have a bot to do it, or you just have a bot to continuously replay missions, like, look, I have 121 stamina, or 121 sanity. I'm gonna farm this one stage for the event over and over again. Let me just have the game, hey, do it 6 times, and then I'll come back. Don't make me individually sit here, oh, it's done, let me click it again. Oh, it's done, let me click it again. Oh, it's done, let me click it again. I don't want to click it again. If I want to click it again, if I wanted to watch it, I'd play the event myself. I have this an auto deploy button for a reason. Anyways, go play Arknights. If you sat this long, I don't know why you're here.